Let's go over some settings that you'll need to change before you start to actually move the things that you've drawn onto a piece of paper or a virtual piece of paper like a PDF. And to do that, I'm just going to open a new file, and I'm just going to use the AutoCAD template, so AutoCAD.dwt, and this is going to give me a completely blank document, which is lovely. So let's pretend that we have some kind of something drawn in here, whether that's in 3D or 2D, doesn't matter for what we're talking about today. And I'm ready to start putting it on paper. When I go to layout, this is where I'm going to start putting things. You will notice that by default, AutoCAD uses an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and air quotes around that sheet of paper. That's not really what we do in theater. We typically will draw either at 11 by 17 if we're doing something fairly small, or the more typical thing historically was 24 by 36, where you need like a large format printer or what we call a plotter. So 8.5 by 11 is not going to fly. I'm going to need to change this. Before I start to make that change, I want you to pay attention to this little box here. If you have ever opened up the Page Setup Manager before and clicked the Display when creating a layout box, like that, this will pop up every time you create a new layout. If you haven't, it won't do it. So let's show you how to get here if you haven't. I'm going to right-click on the Layout tab in the bottom left-hand corner, whichever one I'm working on, and then I'm going to select Page Setup Manager. Great. Exact same menu. If you're a person that would prefer to type, you can just type Page Setup and hit enter. Same menu. Okay, so let's fix this page layout. I'll do that by clicking the Modify page and then select a bunch of different things. I'm going to use an AutoCAD PDF high quality print. I'm going to, there really are no options here that I would need to change, but if you wanted to look at them, you totally can. And then I'm going to change my paper size to Arch D full bleed. The difference between full bleed, well, actually, let's just show you. So if I switch to Arch D and click OK, you'll notice there's this border here, this gray line. And that gray line is representing where a lot of printers, but not all printers, tend to have like a limit for where they can print. If you have a printer and you know the limits, you can absolutely set that. Personally, I have a frame that I put around my title block frame keeps me within those limits by default, so I don't have to worry about it. So I typically don't use the full bleed setting, or I don't typically use the margin setting. I just use ANSI full bleed, either 24 by 36 or 36 by 24 to do that. And if I click OK, you can see that that has now changed, and there's no gray line here. The gray line doesn't prevent you from putting anything outside of it. It's just like a visual reminder that you probably shouldn't. And again, I do that with my title block. And if I need to change the size of my title block to match the printer that I will typically be using, I would do that. Having printed on the plotter that we have available to us, I can say you don't need to worry about changing your title block. It prints just fine. Okay. Well, if you're using the title block that I created. But anyway, we'll come back to that later. You could also just as validly put 24 by 36 as the dimension. The only difference is that it changes the orientation that you see here. We change the way that it prints using this. I know, right? Okay, great. For plot area, plot offset, and plot scale, we're just going to leave them at the defaults. Lovely. For plot style table assignment, pen assignments, we're going to select monochrome. The reason we print in monochrome, or in other words, without colors, is because 1 in 10 people can't see it because of color blindness. So if we're using colors to communicate what something is, then we are relying on a tool that 10% of the country can't read. So we shouldn't do that. Accessibility, we love it. Okay. For shaded viewport options, I'm leaving that. There aren't options here that I can really fuss with very much anyway. I'm going to select plot transparency under plot options, just in case that's something that I'm using to communicate, or if I'm using plastic or acrylic or something like that, oftentimes I will want to have something generated where I can see the plot, the transparency. So yes, I will use that. And then this is where you actually change how the paper is displayed, either in portrait or landscape. So for most of the time, we're going to want to use landscape. And then we're going to click OK. And I'm going to hit close. And now I have all of those settings on this sheet. If I go to layout 2, I still have that 8.5 by 11. That's frustrating, yes? So let's figure out or go over how to make that a little bit better. I'm going to bring up my page setup manager again. And I'm going to click new based on layout number 1. And then now I'm going to give this new setup a name. Oftentimes people will name it based on who they are. So like, you know, I might use LC and then the size of paper. So LC 24 by 36. Or sometimes if I have some specific need for a show, I might call it, you know, the initials for the show and then the size or whatever. So you can name it whatever you'd like to, but descriptive names that tell you which one you actually want to use is always useful, in my opinion. So I'm going to type, in this case, I'm going to say FSU 24 by 36. Great. And I'm going to click OK. So now you can see that the name is FSU 24 by 36, but all of the stuff that I had just set using layout based on layout 1 now is assigned to this layout that I have called FSU 24 by 36. So I'm going to click OK. And then you'll notice though that layout 1 doesn't have this assigned. So I'm in layout 1 right now. I can see that here. I'm going to double click FSU 24 by 36 and now it says this is what it's assigned to. Great. I love that. I'm going to go and click this again. So if I go to layout 2 and I go to my page setup manager, I can double click on that and it changes it really quickly for me. And when I open up a new one and I go to that layout, I can tell it 24 by 36 immediately. If I'm honest, most of the time when I need to create a new layout tab, I'm just going to right click on one that I'm happy with, click move or copy. Usually I'm going to say move to end and I'm going to click create a copy and there I go. The reason I usually do that is because I will most of the time already have a title block as well as some blocks that I frequently use in that layout. So this way I don't have to keep pulling that stuff in over and over again. It just saves me a little bit of time. And anytime you can save yourself a little bit of time, it's a good choice. Okay, so let's say that we have put a bunch of things on this sheet and we're actually ready to send it to a printer. If I type the word print, you'll notice that it brings up plot, the plot menu. So printing and plotting are considered the same thing in AutoCAD. And you will notice that this looks shockingly familiar. It is in fact the exact same menu that we had but moments ago. And the only difference is that if I click OK, it will then take me to a Save PDF menu. Oh, the other difference is that you can change this layout. I don't necessarily recommend that because it's going to change the way it looks before you have a chance to go make sure that it looks okay. Just not a great workflow in my opinion. So if I click OK, it's going to prompt me for a place to save the file and that will then send me to wherever. So I might, you know, click here, send it to whichever folder. Ideally there's a folder that is designated as the place that you put things that you have printed or not. But that's entirely up to whoever is managing your file system in your show. It varies from person to person. Make good choices, friends. I'm going to hit cancel here and show you one other thing that is really, really valuable and important. And that is a batch plot. So if I type batch or batch plot or indeed publish, all of those things will pop up the batch plot menu. So what batch plot or publish allows you to do is to print a group of sheets and put them into a single file. Now that will need to be set up for us. We'll need to do some adjustment to this thing, but this is super, super great if you have, you know, a series of drawings that's 10 10 pages long or 10 layouts long. You don't want to have to save those individually and then combine them into another document, or heaven forbid you leave them separate. That's just a bad call. So this lets you do all of those in a single file and keep your life as simple as possible. You can also bring in files or bring in layouts from other files. So you'll notice here the two drawings that I have open. I've got this drawing 3 open and then also this other one that I can access the tabs from all of those. So let's say that you have a separate file that is the CNC layout file, and you need to plot that sheet from that file. This is how you would do that. And that way you can include it in your layout for everything else. You can even change the order so that it all flows together, like numerically or logically or however you'd like. For the most part, I'm going to get rid of everything that I don't actually need in here. So I'm going to hit subtract after I've selected things, and now it's only going to plot the sheets that are on here. Now when I actually plot these, they're going to be blank, or they'll have this like sad rectangle in the corner, but whatever. Okay, you can save a sheet list. You do not have to save a sheet list, and in fact a lot of times it doesn't really save you any time in the long run. If you anticipate replotting or having to redo some work or something like that, or update something on a regular basis, let's say you have a TGP and you want to have your TGP and your and a centerline section and then one other view or something that you've created. Being able to replot those things quickly is probably valuable. Otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, we're going to publish to. The plotter named in setup could work, but if we select PDF, it's going to give us some options. So we're going to do that and then click on the AutoCAD PDF high quality print. We're going to look up here and you'll notice that it gives us a location. So we can actually go in and change where that's going to go. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to navigate to some place where I want to put it, whatever. And then when I save, it's going to send me there. There are also other sheets or other options here that you can adjust. They are fantastic the way they are. I would leave them. Okay, so I've set that. I've changed which sheets I'm including. Everything else should just be fine the way it is. So then I'm going to click publish, and it's going to prompt me to specify where I want to put that. Again, it's taking me straight to that folder where I had it before. You also don't have to specify the folder, but having to click to a different folder every single time is really annoying. And it's very nice for your TD team or your ATD team if you have already set this so they don't have to worry about it or go hunting for it later when they forget where they put it. So strongly recommend doing that. In this case, I'm going to hit cancel because I don't need that. I'm going to cancel out again. Okay. Oh, it's prompting me to save the sheets. I'm going to click no. I don't need that. All right. There are, of course, other things, but this is like a primer on how to do the printing things. And by printing, we actually mean publishing to PDF so that you can review it as a PDF and then print it on the plotter later. Another function that's really useful is the preview function. So if you type preview, AutoCAD will generate a view of whatever it is, and this will show you what it thinks it's going to look like. One caveat is that it won't necessarily show you accurate line weights, and sometimes the view quality here isn't fantastic. But if you want a general idea of what it's going to try to put out when it goes to publish, this is a great way to do that, just to give yourself a quick idea. All right, I hope that was helpful. If you have questions, let me know. In the meantime, bye.